Speaking of 1 a.m., official right around 1:10 a.m., give us your side of everything that's transpired so far with Liam Cohen leaving the Bucs and coming to Jacksonville.
Oh, God. How much time we got?
Plenty of time.
I think, yeah, well, listen, the Bucs thought they had found a way to retain him, and that was a big deal for them, right? Because he had such success, and they've had already they'll be going on their fourth coordinator now in 4 years, and that's unfortunate. But I mean, Dave Canales came in here his first year and did well enough to land a head coaching job in Carolina. So you're doing something right, and then you bring in Liam, and I mean, the guy was exceptional, right? I mean, you look at what he did schematically. Now, they had better players. They drafted well. They got Graham Barton at center. They had Bucky Irving at quarterback. Baker was more familiar with the players he was throwing to. Jalen McMillan came on at the end of the year. A lot of that had to do with Liam, though. And from a schematic standpoint, he put them in the right positions. He gave Baker a chance to get out of bad plays and into good plays. And he just knocked it out of the park, 29.5 points a game. Took the rushing attack from last in the league the previous 2 seasons to in the top 5. Just a remarkable run that they had on offense. The playoff game notwithstanding, but and so they knew Liam would probably get some interest as a head coach. It turns out Jacksonville was that team. He didn't take a ton of interviews or any interviews. But I guess the decision was, the Bucs thought they had convinced him, and he had agreed to remain in Tampa Bay and cancel his second interview in Jacksonville. And offered him a contract that would have made him the highest paid coordinator in the NFL. But it was contingent on him not taking that second interview. This was on Wednesday. The news comes out, I think, and sometime around after 12:30 or somewhere there. The Jaguars announced that they're parting ways with Trent Baalke, who was kind of perceived, I think, by maybe Liam and others that, didn't make that job as attractive as it could be. But nonetheless, obviously we know now that the Jaguars made another run. And, Liam was supposed to come in on Wednesday, sign the deal. He didn't. He said he couldn't make it. Could he come in the next morning? They're like, yeah, no problem. When he didn't show then, I think from about 2:30 on Wednesday until 5 p.m. on Thursday, they couldn't reach him. They didn't know where he was. His agent said he had some personal stuff going on at one point. Turns out his I guess one of his children, his son, was ill and had to see, somebody, a medical professional, about something. But that didn't prevent him from getting on a plane and going to Jacksonville without the Bucs' knowledge. And then around 5 o'clock, he called Todd Bowles and said, hey, sorry, I've been, dealing with a personal matter, but I am going to look back into this Jacksonville situation and probably go up there and talk to them. Unfortunately, they found out that when he was made that call at 5 o'clock, he actually was in Jacksonville. And so, when you have those kinds of things that happen and some of the subterfuge and cover-ups and whatnot, it doesn't leave a very good taste in anyone's mouth down here. I think the Bucs were furious, quite frankly, at him for not just being straightforward. But again, if he took the interview, that contract was going to be null and void. Maybe he was trying to, balance the two and not sure if he was going to get the job or want the job. So I don't know what's through his head. I guess we'll clear all that up when they do announce him as the head coach up there and they have a press conference. But for now, that's about how it went down. I'm sure there's a ton of other things that were involved in that, but from the Bucs standpoint, it was disappointing on a lot of levels. Not the least of which is they're losing a really good coach.
Rick, thank you so much for joining us. I know a lot of folks in Duval County obviously respect your reporting and the fact that you were among the first on this story last night. First and foremost, I do want you to address, in your estimation, while the contract has not been signed, Liam Cohen is the next coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars?
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think he's told a lot of people that, and I don't. My understanding is the biggest details of the contract were ironed out early this morning. I don't know these are large deals. I don't know what's holding up the announcement per se. God forbid he have another change of heart. He's getting beat up pretty good in Tampa about it, but I believe he is, and we'll just all have to kind of wait, until until that announcement is made. But I think he informed the Bucs early this morning or late last night that they had sort of reached an agreement and he was going to be their head coach.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure we got that one on the record. And then secondly, you've covered the league. You've seen it all. I'm curious, in the grand scheme of however many decades covering the NFL, where does this one rank in terms of the back and forth snip, snap nature of the last 36 to 48 hours, even going back to Sunday, where my reporting says that Sunday was when there first started being rumblings of maybe Liam Cohen isn't just going to take the initial offer from the Jaguars and just go to that second interview on Wednesday?
Yeah, I mean, these things all have their own twists and turns sometimes. I mean, in Tampa, I've done this a long time, but in Tampa we've had about 3 other runaway brides. Bill Parcells did that in '91 to them. Hugh Culverhouse owned the team. They had called a press conference. He wasn't there. The owner was there and said he felt like he was jilted at the altar and there was no honeymoon. And it was really a spectacle. And then once again with Parcells in 2002, after they fired Tony Dungy. In fact, I wrote a story 2 weeks before Tony coached his final game in the playoffs at Philly that he lost, that they had an agreement with Parcells and they were going to retain the entire defensive staff and it's going to bring in Bill Mears as offensive line coach, what they actually did. And that one fell apart for a host of reasons. He was going through a divorce. I think he got pushed back, from the coaching community, and then that led to about a 30-something day search, and eventually they traded for John Gruden, and Gruden won the Super Bowl against his former team. And then Chip Kelly one year, I think 2013, had agreed to coach the Bucs. They were working on a contract, but at that time, long before NILs, it was signing day the next day. Word got out. He had to quickly make a decision, and he backed out of it at about 3:40 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So they've been left at the altar a few times. But this one felt a little more personal because this is a guy that was already on the staff that you identified, that you brought in here, had a lot of success with him, was looking forward to that continuity for a change. And then just when you thought that they had him tied up, he kind of did the end around, and it's just sort of the secretive nature of it that really set wrong with the Buccaneers and their ownership. And a lot of people got their feelings hurt, but at the end of the day, I think Jacksonville's getting a good coach. I don't know, a head coach. He's going to pick the GM too. Those are awfully big jobs. It's not anything he's done before. We know he's a good offensive play caller. There's a lot more to being a head coach than you can imagine. 5 things a day will come across your desk that you're not prepared to do or deal with. Anything from girlfriends to parents dying to kids being sick, all kinds of stuff. And it takes away from your preparation time and all of that. So he's going to have a big learning curve. Hopefully he'll get some guys around him to support him, but there's no question the guy can really understands and can develop and call offensive football. And I think it'll be great for Trevor Lawrence. He needs stability though. It just can't be a 1 or 2 year thing. It's going to take time. They'll be better at the end of the year than they were at the beginning. And, but in the end, they're getting a really good offensive mind.
Rick, I do want to ask you, because a conversation that we've had here now, obviously for weeks, and now that it seems like the head coach is about to sign his papers to be the head coach, and obviously that general manager is next, and then you start building this staff. And the Jaguars haven't had any coach plucked from this team to be a head coach since 2008. So it's been a really long time since these fans and organization have had to watch a coordinator that they actually liked leave the team. And now the Bucs have had to do that multiple times in recent years. We talk about Dave Canales. We talk about now this year with Liam Cohen. Tell us a little bit about Todd Bowles and how he has been able to select these staff that has done so well to be able to go on and get these big coaching jobs very quickly after.
Yeah, well, it's not just him. I mean, I think Jason Light and their staff does a good job of vetting these guys, interviewing the right ones. And, I think, in many ways, it's sort of unbelievable in a sense, because, when Dave Canales came, excuse me, they couldn't give this job away. At that time, Baker Mayfield wasn't here. Kyle Trask was the only quarterback. Some people perceived Todd Bowles to be a lame duck coach that was going to be one more year and done. So they had trouble getting people to even interview, and they ended up with Dave, who, had never called a play since high school in 2005 at Carson High School. He had been Pete Carroll for 16 years, and he passed over him 4 times for coordinator jobs. But because he got the opportunity to be a coordinator, he said yes, and he had to learn on the job. And he was probably better on the emotional side, the optimist side, than he was schematically. But they made it work. They were still last in the league in rushing. They had a lot of holes, but they did make the playoffs. Baker played well. And so they found their quarterback, and then, as fate would have it, Dave moves on and becomes a head coach, which is still one of the biggest meteoric rises in football history. And then, obviously you had some stability with the quarterback this time, and you were able to attract a better candidate in Liam. And that was after a fairly exhaustive search that included a lot of guys that were, good coaches. And I think they hired the right guy. It's just, this is Liam's 5th job in 5 years. He went from Kentucky to the Rams, Kentucky and back and forth, and then came here. So not long on stability, but I think they got fortunate. They built around. They've done a nice job of drafting. I've always said, and I share this with Tom Moore, I wrote a book with, it's about players, not plays. And they've got some really good players. And, if you can put them in the right positions, they'll make plays. And that's sort of what Liam did. And I think he'll do that in Jacksonville.
Well,
Hey, Nia here, and thanks so much for watching 1010XL Jaguars. For even more coverage of the Big Cats, be sure to subscribe to 1010XL Jaguars.